Abraham receives this devastating news. Multiple kings have taken sides and gone to war against each other. And when the dust settled, the victors have taken everything, literally everything from the region captive and left with it. And the news that Abraham receives is that his nephew Lot was part of what was captured by the victors. That they've taken Lot, his family, everything they own, again, as well as everything else from the region, and left. Now, there's two aspects to that story I've always loved. One is how Abraham responds. At the time, he's still Abraham, but how does he respond? He takes the 318 men from his household that he's trained, and he pursues this huge victorious army. But God gives him the victory. And God's victories are always absolutely complete. So what happens? Abraham not just wins, but he recovers everything, that nothing was lost. And there's a second part of the story that I love, but is challenging and intriguing for so many people. See, when he returns, the king of Sodom, who was on the losing side, everything that they had, their people, everything had been taken captive, is now coming back with Abraham. And he's so grateful. What he says to Abraham is, just let us have our people and you can keep everything else as a reward. And Abraham says no. Now this is the part that's challenging and intriguing for so many. Because common sense would say, you earned it, it's a reward, God's doing this, it's a blessing, whatever it may be. But Abraham says, no, I won't accept the smallest thing from you, except what my men already ate, that you may not say, you made me rich. Abraham had this absolute commitment. He was refusing any reward that did not specifically come from God. He wasn't accepting, in spite of the various mistakes he made through his lifetime, he wasn't accepting anything, any blessing, any reward, any victory that didn't specifically come from God, that no one would be able to say they made him rich, or another way to think about it, they made him successful. Now, why am I sharing that story? Well, this is a topic I've wanted to cover for some time, and I've had a couple of conversations this week, including one message earlier this morning that kind of brought it back to the surface. And that's that understanding that in this rapidly evolving world, old paradigms are going away, but more importantly, we are in a season where God is making a distinction among his people. And one aspect of that is God is not allowing anyone or anything to be able to say they made you successful, that you can't rely on them. And by anything, I'm talking good, practical advice from well-meaning sources, business strategies, seminars, and so on. God is not allowing anyone or anything to say they made you successful. And some of you are recognizing this. You're starting to sense it. Again, this message I got earlier today from one of our amazing young warriors, that in her business sector, the traditional strategies, she has this very clear sense that the Holy Spirit is saying no. We'll come back to her because she's got this great testimony to go with that. Some of you are recognizing that you're just feeling the brakes, like the Holy Spirit's not quite letting you implement things. Or, on the other hand, maybe those things, those strategies you've used in the past, you're seeing increasingly where they're less and less effective. They're just not working anymore. And God is nudging his people to lean into and align with the leading of the Holy Spirit. So how do we respond? Does that mean we absolutely reject all advice, strategies, and so on? Well, no, but here's the mindset we want to adopt. And I shared this recently in one of our strategy reports. It's being informed, but not influenced. And in case you missed that one, let me explain. Being informed means we need to recognize, in that case we're talking about the challenges we're facing. We need to have a recognition, and the reason to be informed is so critical. It is so difficult for us to recognize. The Holy Spirit is so subtle. It's difficult to recognize what he's leading us into. if we've never been exposed to it, if it's an entirely new concept, it is so much more difficult for us to grasp that. So we want to be informed so that whether it's now or at a future date, the Holy Spirit can refer back to us, draw our attention back to a piece of information, a strategy, a technique, whatever it may be, and often put a unique spin on it that's entirely ours. He transforms it into something we own. And if we're not familiar with him, it's so difficult to recognize again him doing that. But we don't want to be influenced. So we want to be informed, but we don't want to be influenced. See, influenced is when out of fear, greed, motivation, whatever it may be, that we just feel that pressure to adopt that technique. Now, the reason I say fear and greed, those are in the world the two predominant motivating strategies. Fear, especially fear of missing out, and greed. That this is where the blessing, the opportunity comes from. And it also brings us back to the understanding God He may allow other people to use those strategies and be successful. That's why we don't want to be influenced. We can't look at other people's perceived success and feel like we've got to get that. We've got to use it or we will miss out. That's the informed but not influenced. See, when we are heavily influenced, then that emotional noise makes it so difficult when the Holy Spirit is saying yes, no, adjust, adopt, whatever. The most important thing is we always want that advice. We want that strategy. We want a checklist that we have a confidence is going to work. But the reality is, this is an era when it's not getting that strategy. It's not getting that checklist. But it's getting that mental strategy, that way of thinking, so we can recognize how the Holy Spirit is guiding us into our own unique success. So back to our young warrior. She has had this sense that the Holy Spirit was putting the brakes on those strategies in her sector that not just dominate, they're traditional, etc. And when you do that, you even get a little bit of critique, a little bit of scrutiny from others, like, why aren't you doing what works? But what she did was she recognized the Holy Spirit was putting the brakes on. But one of the other things we've done is prayed that she would have favor. And what's happened? What's the testimony today? That as she's done her best to follow the leading of the Holy Spirit, she's finding that favor is going before her, opening doors effortlessly. That people are getting on board with her and her strategy, her vision, because God is attracting them. It's not just effortless, but it's also powerful and building momentum. Now, effortless doesn't mean we don't have to show up and do our part, but it means we don't have to strive to make something happen. But this was a catalyst to just bring it to the forefront, that we need to understand that the world is changing. Again, old paradigms are passing away. And rather than being victims of that old paradigm dying, that we need to recognize God is making a distinction among His people. We want to be educated on technique, strategies, and whatever sectors, ministries, etc. we're in. We want to learn. That's wisdom. But we don't automatically apply it. We then look to the Holy Spirit for God's direction for each person uniquely. It reminds me of a ministry leader that I'm mentoring, and a great guy. And he's having a degree of success. And everybody is coming to him wanting his game plan. They want to copy him. And he's got that very real recognition that he's just trying to do what the Holy Spirit's leading him into. And that's what's giving him success.